Hello, this is Thomas, November 1 Sierra Papa Yankee, and today I'm going to track the International Space Station. This tracking is for a very interesting project because tomorrow at around 10:30 our local time, a school around 150 miles away in Newport Richey is going to be having a live conversation with astronauts on the ISS. They do this to help share their experiences, to help show how exciting it is to go to space. And I think it would be really interesting and a cool project if I listened in on this. To listen to the space station, I'll be using this software-defined receiver. It's a really nice one, but it can be done with pretty much any SDR, even one that costs less than $10. So the International Space Station revolves around the Earth really quickly. To get from horizon to horizon is about 8 minutes, so I'll have just about that much time to be able to listen in. Now normally, if our antenna is pointed at Newport Richey and their antenna is pointed at us, we could have an easily readable conversation. But because they're talking to the International Space Station way up high, we're going to need to point our antenna upwards, and we'll only be able to listen to one side of this conversation, and we're looking to listen to the astronauts, answering the questions from the students. One last thing is that when you're communicating with a satellite, you have to use the minimum amount of power possible. And because Newport Richey is talking to the International Space Station, they're not going to be using that much power. The International Space Station travels about 250 miles above us, and because there's absolutely no obstacles between the two of us, I'm hoping we should be able to get our signal across. There's one more problem. At 10:30 a.m. tomorrow, I'll be at school, so I'm going to be using the magic of computers to schedule a recording for that time. So I'll be plugging in my disc cone antenna that I have outside. I'll be setting up my software for the recording, and I'll be scheduling the recording and tuning to 145.800 narrowband FM, which is the agreed frequency for the communication. So I'm ready to get set up, and I'll be able to check on my equipment after school tomorrow. Hello, this is Thomas again, and it seems that I have picked up on a recording. The frequency is just a tiny bit off because of Doppler shift, but because we're using frequency modulation, it doesn't matter that much and everything's still readable. So I'm going to go ahead and put up what I received and transpose it on the questions that were asked, and I hope you enjoy.
Almost like we're going through the motions of a routine that we've done multiple times. We have climbed in and strapped in, and we've trained in simulators and rehearsed every aspect of the launch until the day of launch. We're actually executing it for the first time all the way through, and it was in my case when I was launching as a rookie for the first time. So it's thrilling, it's exhilarating, but it's also very much part of our training and can feel very routine. Well, Ryan, one of the most important things we do is we keep track of our radiation dose while we're up here, because without the protection of the Earth's atmosphere, we are exposed to greater amounts of radiation, but our space agencies go through great lengths to make sure that we're not exposed to any that would put our health at any great risk. The ISS and specifically places where we stay for a long time, like our crew quarters, have some extra shielding. But we are exposed to additional radiation than we are without the protection of the Earth's atmosphere when we're on the surface of the Earth. Lisa, I really enjoy looking out the window, and like I mentioned right now, I can physically look down on the United States right now through the windows. That is definitely, almost every astronaut enjoys doing that to some degree, but I also enjoy staying connected with friends and family. It's a lot of fun because people get a real kick out of hearing from me in a telephone call while I'm on board the ISS. Nicholas, that's a great question because we are above the Earth's atmosphere. There is still a trace amount of atmospheric drag that causes our orbit to decay over time, which means that we're slowly, very slowly, coming closer and closer to the Earth, and then it requires a reboost where we fire thrusters on the back of the International Space Station, usually in the form of thrusters from a visiting vehicle, Russian vehicle, attached to the ISS, and we use that thrust to boost us into a higher orbit, and then that cycle repeats, and we only have to do that every couple of months. Well, Alexandria, certainly that the Earth is a beautiful, beautiful planet, and it's a beautiful gift to us, and that we really need to feel obligated to take care of it. It's such a unique planet in the universe. Daniel, I have never heard it described as smelling like gunpowder, but I can see how people have described it that way because it does have a distinctive smell whenever we open the hatch and we bring in our crewmates from a spacewalk, or we open the hatch on a visiting cargo vehicle. There's a distinct smell, and I think it has a lot more to do with the materials of the spacecraft and the spacesuit being exposed to the harshness of space and the vacuum of space that causes those materials to create that smell. But there is definitely a distinct smell, and we do call it the smell of space. But gunpowder, that is an interesting way to describe it, and I think I might use that. Well, there's a lot of inventions out there that we could use. I think one that comes to mind would be a way for us to help us recycle our trash. We could definitely find new and more creative ways to recycle our water, to scrub our carbon dioxide. There are all sorts of possibilities out there, so we need your minds to go to work and help us with some of these tough questions. Amanda, I think that the one that comes to mind is that all astronauts take vitamins while we're on board the ISS, in particular vitamin D, because without exposure to sun, our bodies cannot create the vitamin D we need to keep our bones healthy. And so we all do take vitamins to keep our bodies healthy. But no other medications that we all take to prevent any, in terms of communicable diseases, infectious diseases, because we live in this closed environment, we're actually protected, and they make sure that we're healthy before we arrive, so we're not bringing any communicable diseases on board the ISS. Isabella, I think that every astronaut meets a challenge somewhere along the way in our extensive training. I had about 4 years of training dedicated to flying in space before I ever launched, and that ranges from learning the Russian language to learning about robotics, how to spacewalk, and learning all the systems on the International Space Station, learning to fly in high-performance aircraft, and all of it was challenging. Emma, first we like to make sure that we're very healthy when we arrive, and so we make sure that an astronaut is in the top physical condition when they get here. Then we have the capability to speak to a doctor on the ground, or even have video conference. We have medications up here positioned in the event that we would need to treat somebody with medication. But if we thought that somebody had a surgical emergency and that they needed surgery, then what we would have to do is evacuate the space station, and we put all the crew from the vehicle that the patient came up on, and we'd have to undock and return to Earth. And that is something we'd be willing to do if it came down to it, but not something that we've had to do before, luckily. If you mean some sort of gyro, then yes, we definitely do have things like that up here to do, to conduct scientific demonstrations. We do actually, the control motion gyros that help control the attitude of the space station are like giant gyroscopes themselves. So we even use that concept to help stabilize the ISS in orbit. Well, I'd say that maybe one that's proposed that what I'm doing up here isn't really real. River Ridge High School, it was a pleasure speaking with you. Thanks so much for taking the time. Good luck. Take care.
So this is Thomas again, and I hope you had as much fun watching this video as I had preparing everything and getting my recording to work. Amateur radio, space, and science have always been really interesting topics for me, and it's amateur radio that makes these contacts with the International Space Station possible. So anyways, once again, thank you for watching, and 73 from Thomas, N1SPY.